So, Kara, everybody today talks about community. Companies want community. I can't buy a shirt without having to be part of the community that the company makes the shirt. So I wonder, do these companies understand community? What would you say community is?
I know for me, I try to go to the broadest definition of community. We try to kind of include everyone who's in some way, like you said, they bought a shirt, they're in. But I think a lot of companies are only just learning to define it past that. They're only just learning to say, hey, we keep using the word community, but we're not actually breaking down what it means. Is it, we have this segment and this segment of the community, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think sort of in that space, as you asked, like, what does a healthy community mean? Communities can be healthy in different ways and unhealthy in other ones. They might have a really strong contributor base, but they might be really unfriendly. Or they might be really friendly to newcomers, but they don't have, a more advanced base that's kind of built up yet. Stuff like that. And I think that in a lot of cases, projects and companies are only just starting to look at that in more complex ways.
So a community manager like you would be saying, okay, you're at 90% here, but only 20% here, stuff like that?
I suppose. I wish it were that easy. I wish there were like a rating scale. It was just like, yes, there, done. I can go home now. But you never go home because you're a community manager. That doesn't happen.
How has community management changed in the past few years since you started?
So yeah, I've only been doing it for 3 years, so I'm still a newbie. But I've seen a lot of growth. A lot of people that I've known in other roles have moved on to becoming community managers. Actually, a surprising amount of people I know have moved to becoming community managers. And I think we're seeing that because, we talk about how the whole tech industry is growing. We talk about how do we get more people into tech, more people online, more people coding. But that means that, that with all these, you can't turn your head without a new project and a new meetup. You need a lot more community managers to support that. Which it is still in many ways kind of a young field. And so while I'm seeing that change and that growth, I think there's a lot of questions around if we're bringing so many new people into tech and it's growing at such a rate, are these projects, are these companies, are these spaces actually welcoming to people who are new to tech? Are we purposely building spaces that are good for beginners? Do we have community managers that are out there saying, hey, how do we set up these programs? How do we set up these tutorials? How do we explain to people how to use, the code that we have here and bring new people into the space? And I think that the projects and the companies that really learn how to do that and invest in that are going to be a lot more successful.
So we're really talking about growth, and growth means finding new people who don't understand the community or the code. I've even heard people go so far as to say that the community you have is more important than the code you have, because if you have a good community, they can fix your crappy code.
Yep, and if you have a nasty community, then no one's going to want to use your code anyway. And if people can't figure out how to use your code because you don't have a community explaining it or you don't have resources that have been created there, then they're not going to touch it in the first place.
So, in the past year or so, what has surprised you the most, besides my asking you to do an interview?
Well, first of all, I said yes to the interview because they say that people are more afraid of public speaking than death. And for those currently watching, you can't see, we're actually in a glass box right now. So I'm hoping that this will make me immortal.
Okay.
I would say that what's really surprised me in the past year has been that even with all the people who are moving into community management, that a lot of the community managers I talk to are under-resourced but also overburdened, which is kind of a nasty combo if you think about it. You don't want that. Community managers, in a lot of cases, should be both out in the community, talking to folks, feeling how things are out there, supporting folks in the community, but also internally at the company or internally at the project, working with other people, working with other departments to help them understand how to create resources for the community, how to talk to the community. So they should be enabling people inside the project or the company to be better at what they do. And that takes a fair amount of resources. If you have one person, you have a pretty large company or a pretty large project, and they're spending all their time on something great like user groups, they might not have time to also do that internal work with other departments. So I've been surprised with the importance of community and how much we talk about it. Often how honestly under-resourced a lot of community managers are and a lot of community teams are. I work on a 3-person team. And that's huge for a lot of, like, that's shocking. People can't believe we have 3 whole people dedicated to community, but it's still, it's still, there's so much more you can do. So I'm hoping that, companies and projects will start to realize that, if they really sit down and think, what do we want from this community management role? How are we going to be able to make our whole organization stronger using this and our community stronger, that they'll kind of invest in making that a reality.
It sounds like a company could become more of a community-oriented organization all over.
Exactly.
And part of that is hiring the managers you need to do community. Okay.
And collaborating throughout the company and throughout the community, or throughout the project and throughout the community. Like, everyone's still a part of that. A community isn't just the people outside the building who are using the software. It's the people in the building too.
Well, thanks so much for coming in today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And actually, I want to do a shout out to Josh Simmons, the community manager for O'Reilly for OSCON, who is doing a great job.
Thank you.
And really makes this conference a more welcoming place, a more positive place. So many people have said to me that Josh actually makes a big difference.
That's really interesting, because whenever I don't see him that often, like at conferences, and whenever I walk into the room where he is, he makes me feel really welcome and excited.
So good at that. So good at his job. I love the personal touch that's there in person, and honestly, like on Twitter, on social media, in those spaces. It's hard to do, and Josh just nails it. So out there, thanks, Josh.
Very good.